For more analysis on the humanitarian situation in the CAR and the UN resolution, when I joined live here in the studio by Francis Onditi, is the Regional Child Protection Coordinator with the aid agency Save the Children, and CCTV Stephen Fee, live for us in New York. Stephen, let me begin with you. France now chairs the UN Security Council. How easy will the resolution on CAR sail through?
Well, at this point, it's clear this resolution will sail through the Security Council in just under 20 hours. And of course, as we mentioned in that report, the resolution will authorize the AU MISCA force. We had already expected that. That already had wide support from Security Council diplomats. And at least for the time being, it's really clear that France is the only sort of non-African player that's going to play a huge role for the time being, authorizing that 1,000 or so troops on the ground. The real question is whether or not this transforms into a full-fledged UN peacekeeping operation, complete with the blue helmets. Some diplomats see that as inevitable at this point, but as the French ambassador did point out at that news conference on Tuesday, if the AU force can do the job, can stabilize CAR, then there's no need for a peacekeeping operation. Still, there's a lot of skepticism here. The Secretary General really says that to do the job, to really bring stability, will require some 6,000 to 9,000 personnel on the ground in CAR. It's not clear if the AU will be able to muster a force that large. And of course, there's financial and logistical advantages to a peacekeeping operation. Still, there's skepticism within the United Nations Security Council about the financial logistics of this type of operation. And as we mentioned in that report, this resolution will call for the Secretary General to draw up a potential transition plan in just about 3 months' time.
And speaking of stabilizing CAR, Francis, coming to you, how critical is the humanitarian situation there?
Yeah, at this moment when Central African Republic is experiencing conflict, we have a number of people who are suffering, including children. Actually, as we talk, more than 400 people are internally displaced. In addition to that, we have 61,000 people who have crossed the borders into Gambia, into DRC, and other neighboring countries. So the situation is difficult, and you realize children are not accessing basic needs like water. We have a lot of diseases that are spreading very fast, and a number of people who are being killed, and there is a very critical situation, humanitarian situation in that country, particularly in the northern part of the country, areas like Obo and even Bangui.
Yeah. Stephen, coming back to you, what kind of mandate are we expecting for the troops heading to CAR?
Well, considering the humanitarian situation your guest just outlined, their principal job will be to protect civilians who've largely been targeted in this sectarian violence, including that attack on Monday. MISCA will also be asked, though, to provide avenues for some type of reform. As you well know, CAR's political and policing structures are basically in a shambles, particularly outside of the capital, Bangui. And it also calls for securing humanitarian assistance. UN figures show nearly 1 million people in CAR are in need of food aid, and UN figures also show that basically the entire population, 4.6 million people, are in imminent danger. But there's a real question about speed at this point. The International Crisis Group, an independent organization, released a report just this week saying that international mobilization is not keeping pace with the speed of violence in CAR.
Francis, coming to you, how are children coping with this conflict?
Yeah, the situation is difficult, but what is being seen on the ground is that children are hiding in the bushes. Churches and other Christian institutions are important because that's where children are finding refuge. But critically, children are not accessing basic needs. We have a number of children who are actually not accompanied crossing borders, and they are actually found in between. So it's a very critical situation that probably would require attention of international community and also the regional actors. Yes.
All right. So what efforts are aid agencies such as Save the Children doing to ensure families there have access to basic amenities?
Yes, Save the Children has been working in Central African Republic even before the conflict, the active conflict, and majorly in the areas of health. We have had our team on the ground trying to rescue the children who found in between the conflict. We also have our team working to make sure that those who are not accompanied, they can get rescue in churches and other Christian institutions. So you will also find, especially in town and in northern part of Central African Republic, where the conflict is rising, Save the Children, together with ICRC and other international agencies, are very critical in providing basic needs like water and also psychosocial support, because we realize that there's a lot of traumatization on children at this moment when they're being recruited into armed conflict, and also they're suffering because their parents are separated as a result of the conflict in this country.
All right, Francis
Yes.
Onditi of Save the Children, thank you so much for joining us here. Stephen Fee, live for us in New York, thank you very much for joining us.